Hello, I'm Michael Pierce, and this is The Human Condition. Our topic today has been asked again and again by you, the listener, where you've been asking me to go into ferritin again. So we're going to talk more about ferritin and iron today. We're going to explore some more of the depth of ferritin and iron because so many people have had a problem with this. Ferritin and iron has been such a popular topic on our YouTube channel that so many people have asked questions and made comments. And there is a bit of unpacking for us to do because there are people that complain of higher ferritin levels and maybe not necessarily higher iron, and other people that complain of higher iron levels and not necessarily ferritin levels. And there are some real complicated things that can happen. There are several kinds of anemias that can happen to people. So we need to understand that there are anemias of macrocytic anemias and microcytic anemias, where the red cells get larger or they get smaller, and this happens with usually, not always, but usually with a deficiency of B12 or a deficiency of B6 will cause either larger or smaller red cells. And sometimes there will be iron deficiencies that will create low ferritin and low iron. And this sometimes will go another direction, where ferritin will be high and iron will be high. That happens in hemochromatosis. People tend to get hemochromatosis, which is a familial inherited disease that seems to be triggered by stress. So that's interesting to me because a lot of times I've had patients with hemochromatosis, and when we can lower their stress and clean up their diet, they paradoxically, it seems, get better. Now that doesn't mean to say that if they've got already an iron-filled liver with an advanced phase of hemochromatosis that they're cured. It simply means that they are going to have less symptoms, less problems, and they're going to stop adding iron to their already sick liver if they have advanced cases of hemochromatosis. So when you've been adding extra iron to your liver, you might say, well, gosh, that comes from the iron in meat, doesn't it? So I shouldn't eat meat anymore. Well, it turns out that our carnivore patients don't have hemochromatosis. Only the patients that they have a genetic tendency to hemochromatosis, and they eat a standard American diet, which is high in carbohydrates and refined grains and foods, and they absorb their iron and retain it and don't give it up. So there is some chemistry going on here that has to do with oxidative damage and oxidative stress. So what I like to do is I like to tell people, we really need to lower your stress. You need to use mindfulness techniques and lower your stress and calm down. You need to use stress management techniques. You need to also consider reducing the foods that are refined grains and carbohydrates and increasing the fats and increasing the proteins, depending. Some people don't need to increase protein, but almost everybody needs to increase the fats in their diet, generally, healthy fats. We deal with oxidative stress also by taking N-acetylcysteine. My favorite solution for oxidative stress tends to be N-acetylcysteine, NAC. It's a supplement that sometimes can be hard to get a hold of, but it works very, very well. And I like to use nebulized NAC or intravenous NAC or intravenous glutathione. I like to use oral glutathione or N-acetylcysteine, and these can be very, very useful. The patients also need to have imaging done of their liver. They need to have an ultrasound to see if they have fatty liver, fatty pancreas, fatty heart, fatty tongue. These are all different visceral fat deposits. And ideally, if they think they have hemochromatosis, they probably need a special MRI that's tuned to that iron in the liver. Not every MRI machine is set up to do that. They have to be specially tuned to read iron in the liver. And then doctors will give you medications to help pull that iron out. You can't just bloodlet to get rid of iron in your liver. So there are some ways of doing that, and some people will do things like supplements. They'll try to take medications, and they can do quite well. Be aware also that there are some dangerous adipokines, which are the inflammatory chemicals released by fat cells in your visceral fat. This is fat in your liver, in your pancreas, around your heart, and your organs. This visceral fat is much more dangerous than subcutaneous fat. So we want to get rid of that fat, and we want to try to lose weight and get rid of that. We want to make sure that our triglycerides are low. So monitor your triglycerides and look at your oxidated cholesterol. So oxidized cholesterol, oxidized LDL, those are things, oxidized VLDL. If you can get a hold of a lab that does oxidative tests, that's very important. SpectraCell does this. There are several other laboratories that do that kind of thing. When you look at iron, there is also a molecule that helps carry iron called metallothionein 3. And this carries iron, it carries zinc, it carries a number of other things. So sometimes people have an imbalance or deficiency of zinc relative to copper or other metals. So it's useful to do a blood and hair metal analysis to see what heavy metals a person has and if that is interfering with their iron balance and their metallothionein 3 balance. Metallothionein 3 is really just a sulfur-containing molecule that carries metals. We have it, and horses have it, and other mammals have it, and it's a protein that is made by our livers and all over our bodies that helps us to carry these metals like iron and zinc. So you can induce it by taking zinc lozenges. So some people have been successful by taking zinc lozenges. We also need to look at total iron binding capacity. These are some lab tests that can be looked at. And bear in mind that some people get anemia of chronic disease too, where their ferritin and iron levels get really low because they're anemic. So pay attention to what's going on with you, whether your ferritin and iron are high or low, and how that relates to your stress level. Also, know that one of the things that can happen is ferritin can be high, and it's not hemochromatosis. It can be just inflammation. Inflammation can cause ferritin to be high without a high iron burden, and that can give a person some real problems with oxidative stress. It can be caused by oxidative stress, or it can lead to oxidative stress in the body, and that means that we need to take antioxidants, things like vitamin E and vitamin C and vitamin A, as well as saturated fats are very good antioxidants. The problem with this high ferritin, it's called an acute phase reactant when it's high because of inflammation or because of irritation. So a lot of times we get chronic inflammation from our diets. It comes about mostly, again, from processed foods, processed grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, and flours that are refined and milled. So with ferritin and hemochromatosis, a lot of time people's answer is just bloodletting every 3 months. And I think that's certainly the medical approach, but the real idea is, can we get to the bottom root cause of the difficulty, which is stress, oxidative damage, and improper macros, which is too many carbs compared to fats and carbohydrates. So if we can get rid of insulin resistance and change that oxidative stress and damage of burning sugars too rapidly and too powerfully, we can really get rid of the cause of retaining iron and oxidizing the iron and the ferritin in our blood. And many times you'll see people can continue to eat red meat with lots of iron in it, and they don't need fortified grains, and they can avoid fortified grains, but still eat animal products and even organ meats and do quite well with hemochromatosis. Talk to your doctor and let me know what you think.